What's up, fight fans? This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Demetrius Andrade. Demetrius Andrade on Canelo potentially facing Ryder, he says, is just more bull, bro. Just another easy fight. Demetrius Andrade can't hide his disgust regarding Canelo Alvarez's potential next fight. The two divisions world champion from Providence, Rhode Island, has long criticized the Mexican superstar and undisputed 168-pound champion for supposedly lack of ambition and has repeatedly accused him of avoiding him, despite the fact that they were both network stablemates on DAZN. Andrade left DAZN. Content promoter Eddie Hearn earlier this year recently linked up with Premier Boxing Champions as he fights on a fight-by-fight basis as he takes on Damon Nicholson January 7th. He will be on the undercard of Davis and Garcia, okay? And he says, just more BS, bro. Andrade said on The Boxing Voice, just more BS. That's just what it is. Just another easy fight, another situation for him to go in and say, I'm fighting the best. I'm not disrespecting John Ryder, but come on, bro. He's not the best. Alvarez and Andrade, of course, famously got into it together, and I will cover that here in a second. But here's more of Andrade. In closing, he said, nah, I did my thing. Andrade said, I did my Rocky Balboa stuff. Where I put the faces on the characters, man. I did my thing. At the end of the day, I'm not going to sit here and rely on chasing down Canelo when Canelo don't want to do it. He'd rather fight John Ryder. The reporters have to stop letting this situation like Canelo. I know the truth. You can't even ask Canelo questions because you won't be able to have interviews with him. You can't give him real backlash because you'll never speak with him. I understand it's a business for everybody, bro. Everybody wants conversations with people, but if you mention Demetrius Andrade, there is no conversation. There's no questions. Those are the words of Demetrius Andrade. Listen, Demetrius Andrade is accusing Canelo Alvarez because he wants that opportunity. And I think, let's face it, Demetrius Andrade is supposed to say exactly that. More BS, not fighting the best. Because you guys remember what happened between them two. You remember how Canelo shot him down, and it went viral after, I believe it was Canelo stopping Billy Joe Saunders. And it was. I mean, it was like one of those, it was a boxing shaming moment for Demetrius Andrade, because Demetrius was like, hey, let me get it on. I don't really think that he was disrespectful. I just think Canelo Alvarez didn't want to really hear that right then. You know, I don't think he wanted to fight Demetrius Andrade anyway, because Demetrius, unfortunately, has had the reputation, even being an undefeated fighter, of not having the best team around him. You know, a lot of unfortunate things happened to him, man. The fall through with Billy Joe Saunders. Actually, Saunders got the fight with Canelo, and it was no fault of his own. Bad business decisions. He should have fought at least one of those Charlos, and if he would have beat one of them, he would have been in a different different position right now. Very different. And Demetrius saying that John Ryder is another BS fight, but I don't think so. I think John Ryder has a much better resume than him. Much better. Okay. John Ryder has been in very close decisions. He's a very hard, rugged fighter. More importantly, he's an exciting fighter. You know, Nick Blackwell, he was stopped by him. He lost a very close decision, unanimously, but very close on the scorecards to Billy Joe Saunders. Okay, so he did get a Billy Joe Saunders fight as well. Billy Joe Saunders beat guys like Chris Eubank Jr. and David Lemieux, okay, and it goes on and on, okay? So, you know, John Ryder was in there with those guys. He just stopped an undefeated opponent in his last fight, okay? And he decision Danny Jacobs. Okay, yeah, it was in his backyard, but listen, you got Danny Jacobs, you got Billy Joe Saunders, you got Nick Blackwell, and you may have Canelo Alvarez. So I think based on what Ryder has done, his resume speaks for himself. He might not win them all, but his resume, he's definitely had the experience, and he's definitely been in there with some of the top fighters, the decent to top fighters. And when you start dethroning guys and snatching their O away from them, you deserve something. And I think Ryder deserves it, honestly. And that gives Canelo time to rest besides pressuring him to go back up to 175 because he just was defeated. And Demetrius Andrade is really, let's look at what he's done lately. He really hasn't done a lot. Let's just be real. He hasn't done a lot in the, and I like Demetrius, but like Demetrius, his last antic, it's almost like he's begging for fights, like that Chris Eubank drunkenish rant, kind of bizarre. That wasn't really good for Demetrius Andrade, And again, it's like, to me, Demetrius, like he almost has the wit, almost has the self-promotion, but not quite. It's like someone that is almost there and not there. And I mean like verbally, when he talks about himself, it's almost like either he tries too hard or, that last thing that was really not unlike him at all. It was not like him at all. That drunken rant that he had, and I'm like, well, what was that about? Like we could make a lot of money. And I'm thinking like, dude, what's up with Demetrius Andrade? You know what I mean? And it's crazy. Like, and he's won. He's beat all of his fights. But the last person, Liam Williams, he's decent. Makai Sulecki, he was decent. You know what I mean? And like, those guys were decent opponents. But, honestly, it's like, all right, well, he hasn't done anything worth mentioning. And I think him talking about Canelo, now I do agree with him about Canelo. When you do mention Demetrius Andrade, Canelo is one of those guys where if you piss him off, he doesn't want to do interviews with you. So he's to that point where you have to be political with the questions you ask. That's a lot of people. It was like that with Floyd before Floyd fought Manny Pacquiao, you just certain words, certain people you could not mention to these fighters because these fighters will shun you. And if you're any type of journalist or reporter, especially if you have a YouTube platform, you can't afford to get shot down like that. You know what I mean? And if you do, it better be viral and it better be beneficial for your benefit. You know what I mean? But other than that, you can't ask certain questions that get up under fighters' skins because they don't want to see you again. Bars. That's what it is. And Demetrius Andrade just shooting down Ryder, I don't think that's the way to go because Ryder has a much better resume than him. Okay? And that just shows you the difference between someone that does have a pretty good resume versus, or an undefeated record. Just because you have an undefeated record don't make your resume better than the person that has a couple losses. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of Demetrius Andrade talking about Canelo and criticizing Canelo's next opponent, John Ryder. Of course, please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.